Hey everyone, I'm James Lynch, and this is Early Look, the show where I take a look at an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, I'm going to be previewing the UFC 288 co-main event in the lightweight division. Former champion Charles Oliveira taking on Beneil Dariush. And if you've never watched this show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. I'm going to present everything I could find in this matchup, and then at the end, I will give you my pick, and you can agree or disagree. Some of this stuff may be relevant, it may not be. I just like to look at every little angle when it comes to previewing fights. So I mentioned it there. UFC 288 going to be taking place at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. This is the co-main event. Unfortunately, a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. I've said it many times on this show. Fights with significance like this one should really be 5 rounds. I know there's time issues and things like that, but they got to make it work. I don't know. Listen, if the Diaz brothers can get 5-round fights, why can't these guys? This should absolutely be a 5-round fight, not a 3-round fight, but I digress. This is actually going to be the first 3-round fight for Charles Oliveira since December of 2020, right? Because he obviously had, was the title holder, the champion, all that stuff. So that's one thing to keep in mind, a rare 3-round fight for Oliveira. And quick tale of the tape shows us here. Charles Oliveira, 33-9. Beneil Dariush, 22-4-1. 33 years old to 34. 5'10" apiece, 74-72. So Oliveira with a slight reach advantage. They're pretty much the same age if you look at everything, sort of adding up and everything. And then records-wise, obviously Oliveira has a few more fights, but that's typical. Oliveira's been fighting for a very long time, so that's kind of expected there. Let's start first with the former champion, Charles Oliveira, and go through everything that he's got. So you look at it there, Charles Oliveira, like I mentioned, 5'10" with the 74-inch reach, just a 2-inch reach advantage. He's the number 1 ranked lightweight fighter. He's the former UFC lightweight champion. He's a 3rd-degree BJJ black belt. He's got the most submission wins in UFC history at 16. He's got the most submission wins in UFC lightweight history at 10. He's got the most finishes in UFC history at 19. He's got performance of the night bonus 12 times, and he's got fight of the night 3 times against Nick Lentz twice and Frankie Edgar. Oliveira has been fighting for quite a long time. If you look at it there, had that amateur debut way back in November of 2007. Didn't make his pro debut until 2008. Where are we here? Because some of these are amateur fights as well. And then didn't make his UFC debut until, check this out, August 2010. He fought Darren Elkins in his UFC debut way back at UFC on Versus 2. That shows you how old, how long Oliveira's been in the weight class. Oliveira has a 21-9 UFC record with 1 no contest. He's got 19 stoppage victories, like I mentioned there, a UFC record. Some notable wins throughout his career. We can go through them. Jeremy Stephens, very good win there. Miles Jury was 15-1 at the time. That was a good win. Kevin Lee, that was the fight that I think really started this whole run of Oliveira getting to the title shot and really turning his career around. Going out there and taking out Lee, very impressive. Actually looked great in the stand-up against Kevin Lee as well, and then ended up finishing him via guillotine choke in the 3rd round. Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. These are all good wins. Don't listen to people that tell you that these aren't quality victories, because you do see that argument every now and then. Oh, Poirier and Gaethje are old, Chandler's old. Listen, they are up there in age, but they're still very good fighters, especially a guy like Gaethje, who we just saw recently at the time of recording this, beat a really good up-and-comer in Rafael Fiziev. So that's a very good win there for Oliveira. Some notable losses for Oliveira. He's got a bunch, but again, this has been the interesting career of Oliveira, going from what some considered a bust of a prospect to a UFC champion. Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone, Cub Swanson, Frankie Edgar, Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis, Paul Felder, and most recently, Islam Makhachev in a fight that was not even close. Oliveira's competed in a bunch of different weight classes. He actually started his career at welterweight, fought 7 times at 145 pounds, missed weight 4 times, and then missed 1 time at 155. That was against Justin Gaethje, where his title was stripped. You have to be right on the mark at 155 to defend your title. He's 155.5. There was that whole issue about the card being in Texas and them having some weird stuff going on there. Or sorry, not Texas, Phoenix. My bad. There was some weird stuff going on with the scale there. With a couple different fighters, because there's a number of fighters who missed weight. Nonetheless, he was stripped of his title when he fought Gaethje. So when he beat Gaethje, he wasn't the champion. That's why when he fought Islam, the title was vacant. Let's get to some other stuff here with Oliveira. One thing you got to give him credit for, go all the way back to 2010. He's been very active throughout his career. You don't see a lot of gaps in here. In fact, he hasn't had any major layoffs in his entire UFC career. Very impressive. He's had a few injuries, though. Let's talk about those. Was supposed to fight Jeremy Larson, not Jeremy Stephens, way back in October of 2013. He had a thigh injury there. And then he was supposed to fight Nick Lentz in 2014, had an illness. But look at this. Ever since then, I mean, he had the Oliveira withdrawal, but that was an injury related. That was something else. Yeah, pretty healthy. Not a guy that has had to take a lot of time off. So that's one thing that, to his credit, Oliveira, very active throughout his career. No close fights with Oliveira. He has had the Ferguson fight, for example, but that wasn't close. Yeah, he mostly goes out there and finishes his opponents. So no real issues in terms of bad decisions or bad judging there. And then just a couple quick stats here for Oliveira if you want to go through them. Again, may or may not have an impact on how you're picking this fight, but according to UFCstats.com, which is a great site, significant striking accuracy for Oliveira is at 53%. He's got a 55% takedown defense. He's got a 51% significant strike defense. Oliveira does get hit a lot, and that's something that caught up to him in the Islam Makhachev fight, so only 51% there. And check this out. Average submissions attempted per 15 minutes throughout his UFC career is 2.8. Which explains why he has so many submission victories. This guy does not, like I say, like going to the judges' scorecards in that one. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about Oliveira. Very interesting career. And I think we forget, he's only 33. Like, that's not that old for a guy who's been in the UFC since 2010. So we basically seen, a good chunk of his career take place in the octagon. Not the case for a lot of different fighters, but he's got a really tough test here against Beneil Dariush. And why don't we talk about Beneil right now, shall we? Benny, as they like to call him, 22-4-1 record. He's got 5 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 9 decisions. He is 33 years old. So actually, I just realized they had that wrong on the graphic here. They say he's 34 and Oliveira's 33. Dariush is going to be 34 on May 6th. So by the time this fight take place, actually it's his birthday. He's fighting on his birthday, interestingly enough. So he will be 34, but Oliveira is going to be 34 as well in October. So they're the same age. So I guess when that graphic was up here, they meant that he'll be 34 on his birthday when he has this fight. So that's interesting as well. What do we got here? And then as far as some other stuff here, so he'll have, they're both 5'10", and the reach advantage, like I said, goes to Oliveira, but they're about the same age there. Dariush is the number 4 ranked UFC lightweight. He's a BJJ black belt. He's a Muay Thai black belt, and he trains at a King's MMA, that great gym over there with Rafael Cordero. He's got performance of the night bonus 4 times against Darren Cruikshank, Drew Dober, Frank Camacho, and Drakkar Klose. He's got fight of the night 1 time against Carlos Diego Ferreira. And he also got the UFC honors comeback of the year when he took out Drakkar Klose. Dariush did not have an amateur career. You can see he went right to the pros way back in November of 2009. Made his UFC debut in January of 2014. Where are we here? As he fought Charlie Brenneman. There's a name I haven't heard in a while. Some notable wins. In the UFC, he has a 17-4 record in the octagon. He's got 8 stoppages. Some notable wins include 2 wins over Diego Ferreira. He's defeated Jim Miller. He's defeated Michael Johnson. At the time, that was a really good win for him there. Thiago Moises took him out. Drew Dober, Tony Ferguson right here. And then obviously Mateusz Gamrot in his last fight. Very good win there. Some notable losses include Ramsey Nijem was finished in the first round there. Michael Chiesa, people forget, Chiesa used to fight at lightweight, submitted him in that fight. Got knocked out by Edson Barbosa and also got knocked out in 42 seconds by Alex Hernandez. That was his last loss, though. Nice win streak heading into this fight. That was way back in March of 2018. I'm sure if these two fought again, Dariush would be a big favorite, but still got to point that out as well. Dariush has had a few injuries. I think we forget he was supposed to fight Marbek Taisimov way back in January of 2016, had an injury there. Supposed to fight Drakkar Klose the first time in July of 2019, had an injury there. Klose ended up fighting, I believe, Christos Giagos in that fight instead. And then the famous injury, supposed to fight Islam, had an ankle injury there, and that really cost him big time in terms of his career because Islam obviously went on to fight was it Bobby Green or Dan Hooker? I can't remember, one of them, and then Islam got the title shot. Instead, Dariush had to fight Gamrot, fight that he ended up winning in his last fight. He's had a couple close layoffs. Let's talk about those. He's had 2 major layoffs in his career. Going from Scott Holtzman to Diego Ferreira, there's a 182-day layoff. But here's the big one. Going from Tony Ferguson to Mateusz Gamrot, there was a 525-day layoff in between those fights there. That was a pretty big one, but here, not so much fighting Oliveira in April, having fought in October. He's had a couple of close fights. I mentioned the Michael Johnson fight. That was back in August 2015. That was a split decision win for him there. 12 media members scored the fight for Michael Johnson. Not a single media member scored the fight for Dariush. So one interesting thing there. Maybe his record looks a little bit different. But then if you look at the draw he had against Evan Dunham, that was back in October of 2017. 5 media members scoring the fight, a draw, 10 10 scoring it a draw, 5 scoring it for Dariush. So probably should have been a draw in that one, but that's another interesting sort of tidbit is that Dariush, a lot of people feel like he didn't beat Michael Johnson back in the day. Some stats here for you for Beneil Dariush. He's got, it's going over some of the same stats that I mentioned with Oliveira. He's got a significant striking accuracy of 49%. He's got an 80% takedown defense. That's going to be a key stat here because if Oliveira cannot get this to the ground, one of his biggest weapons is going to be very compromised. Now, we've seen Oliveira get standing submission wins. We saw that against, what was it, Dustin Poirier, right? Or was it Gaethje? Actually, it might have been both, actually. Hold on. Gaethje, rear naked choke. Poirier, rear naked choke. Yeah, we've seen him being able to go out there and get standing submission wins there. But still, 80% takedown defense, that's really good and a good asset for him there. Significant strike defense for Dariush is 58% as well. So not a guy that gets hit like a ton. I mean, so his significant strike defense is 58%. With Oliveira, it is 51%. So he's got better striking defense as far as that goes. Okay, this is a tough one. Very, very, very tough one because, Dariush, I think, surprised some people in his last fight, taking out Mateusz Gamrot. If you remember that fight, Gamrot probably won the first round, and then Dariush sort of took over after that. Gamrot, he said it himself after he lost that fight. He said he had one game plan, and that was to out-wrestle Dariush, but he couldn't do it. And I mentioned the takedown defense that he had at 80%. Dariush was able to keep the fight standing and win the fight that way. With Oliveira, it's going to be a different animal because Oliveira is good everywhere, right? He's got good striking, right? We've seen that, like I said, in the Kevin Lee fight. Here's a guy that stood and traded with Justin Gaethje, with Poirier, all these guys, right? Chandler, the fight, it almost cost him. Oliveira almost got knocked out in that first round, but his striking's very good, and he's got power. Like I said, we've seen Oliveira knock guys out, including Michael Chandler. That was a very impressive victory that he had there. And we've seen him, like I said, knock out Jared Gordon, Nick Lentz, a few common opponents there between the two fighters. So Oliveira's got very good stand-up, but his ground game, I think we can say him and Islam, probably the best ground game in the division. So that's another big asset for him. Now, Dariush, I don't believe has been submitted before. And like I said, he's a black belt as well. So if you look at it here, yeah, Dariush just pretty much just lost. Oh, Chiesa choked him out, but that was way back in 2016. I'm sure Dariush's submission defense has improved significantly since this fight. Because it's a 3-round fight, this makes it a bit more interesting, right? Because are we going to see a finish here? Now, Oliveira typically hasn't even gone 3 rounds in most of his fights. You look at it here, 2nd round finish here for Chandler, 3rd round finish for Poirier, round 1 finish for Gaethje. So the fact that it's 3 rounds doesn't seem to matter for Oliveira. For Dariush, he's gone the distance in his last couple fights, right? In fact, he hasn't had a finish since Scott Holtzman. So I suppose it's possible that Dariush could finish Charles Oliveira in this fight, right? Whether it's standing or maybe on the ground as well. Like I said, Islam was able to submit Charles Oliveira on the ground in his last fight. But you look at the competition he's done it against, Holtzman, close was, no pun intended. That fight was, both guys were throwing leather. In fact, Close actually nearly knocked out Dariush in that fight himself. But you look at the wins here, Holtzman and Camacho, these are, and Dober was a good win. I'll give him that one. That was a very good win, submission win though. But you look at it here, some of these finishes that he's had are against subpar competition. With Oliveira, he's actually finishing some really high level guys here. So it's a very iffy one here. I think kind of how I look at this fight is that this is the first time, in my opinion, that Dariush is fighting someone that's got the type of power that Oliveira has, right, in terms of the striking department. Not to mention, easily the best ground specialist he's fought in his career. I mean, Ferguson's ground game's great too, but you're not getting the old Ferguson. You're getting the, like I said, 2021 Tony Ferguson, not the same guy that fought Dariush at that time. So that's kind of where we're going here, is that, Dariush, very well-rounded guy, but I think Oliveira excels in certain areas like the ground game, and I think his striking's come a long way too. This is super tough for me. You guys know, obviously, I think very highly of Charles Oliveira. He had a really bad fight against Islam Makhachev in his last fight. Islam, like I said, dominated that fight. Wasn't close at all. Is that a sign of, some people said that was Oliveira getting exposed. Some people, like me, feel like that was an off night. I don't think he fought his best because, again, we have evidence of him competing well against guys like Gaethje, Poirier, and Chandler. And yes, he got hit in those fights, but he still ended up winning. That's a key thing here. And again, these guys, all very high quality opponents here. So with all that said, I'm going with Charles Oliveira in this fight. Now, could Beneil Dariush go out there and continue what he did in the last fight and, build off that win over Mateusz Gamrot? Absolutely. I'm not counting out Dariush whatsoever in this fight. I think this is one of the harder fights to pick. Looking at the odds right now, which I forgot to do, but I'll show them here. It's early. We don't have it from every book yet, but look at this. Beneil Dariush is the favorite at -120. So you're telling me we're getting plus money on Charles Oliveira. Now, granted, Oliveira was an underdog against Islam as well, but I still think that Oliveira, in my opinion, at least recently, has fought better competition. Oliveira's also been more active. And you've got the threat of Oliveira, like I said, can knock you out. He can submit you. The only concern with Oliveira, and we saw that in the Islam fight, is that he does get hit a lot. So if he's making, mistakes, if he's getting a little bit too reckless, Dariush can capitalize and possibly get it done here. So how I think this fight is going to go is I think Oliveira might actually knock out Beneil Dariush. Now, I could see it happening possibly second, third round here. I think he could get the finish. I think if that doesn't happen, then I think you'll see Oliveira potentially win a decision here. And I know that's nuts. Oliveira doesn't win decisions, right? The last time he had a decision it was against Tony Ferguson. But I just think Oliveira on paper is the better fighter. I think Dariush is very well rounded himself, but I think we've seen Oliveira get it to that next level. With Gamrot, as great as a win that was, we saw Gamrot actually struggle to fight after against Jalen Turner in a fight that some people feel like he didn't win. And, Dariush won that clearly. I don't think there was any debate there, but I just think maybe that win's being a little bit overinflated, just a tad. Whereas I think with Oliveira, we have, countless evidence that he's been able to beat high-level opponents. So that's kind of where I'm thinking of this too. Not to mention, there is a theme in Dariush's career, and again, it hasn't happened lately, but, Hernandez, Barbosa, and Ramsey Nijim all finishes early. And that's typically what Oliveira does. He does not like going later in the fight. So again, I think that favors Oliveira in terms of him being a pretty fast starter when it comes to his fights here. So I'm going to go Oliveira by second round knockout. Would not shock me if it's a third round knockout or it's a decision. Could he submit Dariush? I suppose, but Dariush is a black belt. Like, I just don't see him getting submitted by Oliveira. Maybe it happens. Maybe he can make a mistake and Oliveira, gets some standing, but I think that's likely how it goes. I think if Dariush wins, it'll be a decision. I don't think he finishes Oliveira unless Oliveira makes some really glaring mistake here, but Oliveira knows what's at stake here. If he loses this fight, he's out of the contender spot. All that hard work of him defending his title and all these different things, it's all going down the drain. There's far more pressure, in my opinion, on Oliveira than Dariush, because if Dariush loses this fight, he's had enough of a winning streak here. How many has it been now? 9 fights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight win streak. He could get another win in between there and get right back in the saddle, so to speak. But with Oliveira, back-to-back losses, that's going to be detrimental to him. So, I'm going to go Oliveira, second round knockout. I'm not counting him out here. And plus you're getting him at plus money at the time of recording this, which I think there's some value there for sure on Oliveira being able to get it done. So that is my thoughts on this fight. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who are you picking in this fight? How do you think it gets done? Let me know what you think. Again, I presented a bunch of different things to you guys here. Let me know what you think's relevant, what you don't think is. More than happy to discuss this fight, as long as we're not going to put on the old, oh, you're an idiot for saying this. Like, more than happy to discuss this fight, but you guys don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be mean about it. You guys can just have a talk about this fight. And also let me know in the comments if there's any other fights you want me to preview. I always do the main events, but if there's any other fun fights you'd like me to look into, more than open to doing that as well. So again, appreciate you tuning in. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching Early Look, and I'll see you next time.